So we begin our look at my top 5 favorite horror films of all time, with one starring Jack Nicholson, directed by Mike Nichols. This is Wolf. Worn down and out of luck, aging publisher Will Randall is at the end of his rope when his co-worker and protege Stuart Swenson snatches both his job and wife out from under his nose. However, after being bit by a wolf on a snowy road, Will suddenly finds himself energized, more competitive than ever, and possessed with an amazingly heightened senses. Meanwhile, Laura Alden, the beautiful daughter of his shrewd boss, begins to fall for him without realizing that the man she's begun to love is gradually turning into the creature by which he was bit. So you're thinking to yourself, Wolf? Really, Wolf is your number 5 favorite horror film of all time? Well, yes it is, because until I saw Wolf, in my opinion, I had not seen a good werewolf movie. And what Wolf does that does it right for me, might not do it for everyone, but it does it for me, that it's not all about the beast. It's not all about the wolf itself. It's about how the wolf, the beast within, changes the man. How it changes Will Randall, portrayed by Jack Nicholson. And I think there's a lot of good things in this film that is very much more character driven. Like I said, it's about how it changes the character of the man. And I love what Jack Nicholson does in this film, that it's not that usual kind of smiling Jack, big kind of hamming it up or very highly charismatic type of thing. He starts out portraying Will Randall as a much more downtrodden guy who's doesn't have the best stellar life possible. He's kind of a pushover. He's a guy who's kind of worn out in life. He's an older guy. It feels like he's on the tail end of a career that hasn't really gone anywhere, and he's kind of a complacent type of guy who's willing to get pushed over by the bigger corporate guys in this publishing house. And what the wolf bite does, it starts to change his personality. It makes him more confident, more assertive, a little bit more stronger character, stronger person who's willing to go after things, stand up to people. And that's a positive change for a certain amount of time until the wolf starts to make a more animalistic change in him, and he becomes a much more savage individual, and under the cover of night he starts to change into the wolf and becomes a much more feral, much more vicious and savage type of thing that just works so well in this film for me. And the big thing beyond that, because Nicholson does turn on kind of that bravado, the kind of chemistry, that kind of charisma a little later on when he starts developing that more confident angle in Will Randall, but there's a very unexpectedly very good chemistry between Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer, and you might think that'd be a little odd because there is kind of almost like a 20-year age difference between them, but there's a very solid kind of seductive sizzle between them, that this kind of romantic connection, this sort of passionate connection that they have in the film really works exceptionally well. I think they do a wonderful job just creating this real energy in the whole film that really kind of electrifies things a lot. It just makes it a lot more, just taps into that much more animalistic, primal feel of the whole film. And Michelle Pfeiffer, I think, does a really tremendous job as Laura Alden, that there's a certain seductive aura about her that creates a dangerous dynamic between her and Will Randall that I think that age difference really does work towards the benefit of things, because Will's like I said, much more older, worn out, kind of tired type of guy, and she's much more young, vibrant, and lively, and they spark up such an abundance of sexual chemistry. It's very surprising, but very good. And the really, really, really special thing in this film, I think, James Spader is really fantastic in this film, that he kind of has a little bit of that sleazy edge to him. He's much more of an unscrupulous type of guy. He portrays Will Randall's protege in the publishing firm, and he's doing all this kind of politicking and manipulation in the office, trying to get Will's job, and there's this really good kind of jockeying for position in the hierarchy of the company and everything between them. It's a lot more interesting than it sounds. The chemistry and personalities between Jack Nicholson and James Spader work tremendously. These two guys are some of the most charismatic actors around, and they do a fantastic job working off one another. And when I will never spoil anything for you, but when it gets into that third act, Spader becomes so fantastic. He becomes so goddamn amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. Spader turned on to the fucking hilt, and I absolutely love it. The whole, I'll get into the third act. I'll get into the climax, which is without spoilers, but it's very fantastic. But the thing to also comment on is the makeup effects in this thing. I really, really like them that they don't go with that full kind of howling type of thing that it can turn into a gigantic 7-foot wolf. It's much more subtle. It's much more, a little bit more hair, a little bit of fangs, just a little bit more feral look to it and everything. And the eyes especially are fantastic. They're just, oh man, they're creepy as living fuck. And this is all due to the work of Rick Baker, who did a little bit of work on The Howling, but is especially known for his work on American Werewolf in London, and also did effects in the Michael Jackson Thriller video. One of the best makeup artists ever. He's an absolute master in the field. And he does especially different work here than his previous work had done in those werewolf movies. And it's still fantastic. It's still wonderful. I still love the look of it. That it just works much more into the style of the film that Mike Nichols was making. And I love how he directs this film. I love how he shoots it. That there's still kind of that almost like old Universal horror type of thing that doesn't really kind of go for that completely, but in the camera work, some of the zooms, some of the kind of like process shots when they're driving, just little things here and there that just kind of harken back a little bit more to that classic horror era, with still have a modern edge to appeal to a modern audience. I love that kind of balancing, that kind of melding that he does with the cinematography and a little bit of the direction he has in the film. And I think the mystical ideas of this demon wolf are just beautifully conveyed here. That there's a real grounded sensibility when Will hears about the lore behind all this from a man of science and research that gives that real dreadful, grounded, serious quality to it. That's really what Mike Nichols goes for in this film. That he's going to introduce you into a world that's very relatable, very realistic, very grounded. He's got characters that are very fleshed out into a world that's very familiar. This environment of inter-office politics that progresses to lustful connections and adultery, and then elevates to that much more fearful, supernatural, horror-filled reality of the wolf and everything, and it becomes a great interwoven story that I just love. All these elements, how he meshes all this stuff together is really amazing to me, that he just has such a great handle, just a great balancing act between all these elements of story and horror and everything going on in this thing, that if it was a lesser filmmaker, it could turn into a real mess of shit. With him at the helm, he does it so perfectly, in my opinion. And he pays it off with a really, absolutely fucking wild finale. The third act of this film goes to a really savage high point. It is just wonderful. I just love how it just goes all fucking out. And, you know, it just, when you got the big climax, the big confrontation here, I won't spoil anything. I won't even give away who the confrontation is specifically between, but it all flows together. Wonderfully, fantastically, naturally, organically, from everything that's set up throughout the film. And apparently the third act of the film was reshot. And I can't find anything online, any kind of evidence, any kind of thing whatsoever about what the actual original third act of the film was. I mean, there was no novelization to reference. I can't find a script or anything that tells me what the original version was, that they decided that wasn't good enough, we gotta reshoot it. Whatever they did, I think it was fantastic. I think whatever it was right to the benefit of this whole film, and there's not even a way to even determine what it is, where the kind of cutoff point is, where the kind of shift from the original shot stuff to the new shot stuff is, because it's so seamless. It's so, like I said, organically flowing throughout the whole narrative that it all fits together. It all feels like this is the way it was always supposed to be, and it just pays off so well. And that there's such a heartbreaking type of quality to the end of the film. It doesn't have a happy ending, because it is a horror film. It should have a little bit more of a downtrodden type of interesting kind of horror, scary type of vibe at the end of the film, and there's still a bit of a quirky, kind of humorous, odd punch at the end that Nichols really hits on the right on the right chord. And it's just that whole thing. He just works everything so perfectly in all these different odd tones and odd styles, and it just fucking works. Whatever it is with his talent and the way he approaches stuff, I think is fantastic. And there is great horror in this film. There's a lot of great savage, feral stuff going on when Nicholson's character goes out in that New York streets at night and the wolf takes over, and there's a lot more of that savage, bloody, brutal type of stuff going on. But it's not overly graphic. There's enough graphic stuff to really satisfy, but it doesn't go gratuitous on your ass or anything. It gets it on the right level. It sells everything just the perfect ways. I just love Wolf so much. Obviously, I don't think there's anything to really take away from it, in my opinion. I know a lot of people have not loved it on this kind of level. I've never really seen anyone give it this much love before, but for me, this is the werewolf movie that I've always wanted. This is the werewolf movie that really does something for me because it invests me in characters so much. It invests me in a story and dynamics between characters instead of just going right for the guttural throat of a werewolf movie where it's just a beast chasing people, running wild and killing people. That's a little bit more flat and not very as interesting as what Mike Nichols achieves in this film. So there's a little bit more to read in the written review. You can get the link in the description below. And number 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are coming up a little later on. Some surprises and some very good classics in this lineup. So you stick around. There's a lot more fantastic, scary, frightening stuff coming up. So Forever Horror Month continues shortly. See you soon.